How to test customer acquisition before committing a budget. My name is Ed Kang, lead advisor at startups.com. And I'm going to spend some time teaching you how to test your customer acquisition before committing a budget. We're going to go through what it is and what this worksheet will do for you, why it is important, how you can do it. And I'm going to explain how you can do it from a do-it-yourself standpoint, so you can just do it on your own, or explain how you can have somebody do it for you. Let's talk about what is customer acquisition. For entrepreneurs, founders, anybody in business, customer acquisition is, as it sounds, is when you go out and you want to acquire a customer. But it's not as easy as simply going out and selling. Many entrepreneurs, founders, business people, marketing executives find themselves in a situation where they may be trying to sell to everybody. Some call this boiling the ocean. And the adage goes, if you try to sell to everybody, you sell to nobody. So there's a process that we can follow where we can target who we're trying to sell to, optimize what we're doing, and then work through different marketing channels. And many entrepreneurs get confused by the marketing channels because they'll look at other companies pursuing one marketing channel, or they'll hear advice saying, go and do it this way. You should go take out Google ads or get on YouTube, etc., social media, because it's free. And that may not be the best way, especially if it's highly competitive. And the reason I think this is important and why I tell entrepreneurs and founders to go through this process is because when you go to an agency, of course, they're going to tell you, well, we can do that for you. We can give you a program and it's going to cost you $2,000-$3,000 a month is pretty much the entry. Or you're going to go to an individual who specializes in something unique, such as SEO, and they're going to say, yes, this is going to solve all your problems. And that just isn't the case. And I like to take an approach where I don't know what's going to work for you. There are things I don't know. I may have a good guess, I may have experience, but every business, every startup is different. And therefore, it's important to go through a proper process. And before you commit to $2,000, $3,000, or you start putting everything together and going down a rabbit hole, if you will. I think someone told me today, they said, Ed, I didn't go down the rabbit hole. I went down a wormhole. That's how deep things went. Well, you can understand why. And so I advocate for testing marketing channels in short, controlled bursts where you can test a hypothesis. And as the adage goes in startups, fail early, fail fast, and fail cheap. And just figure out how to make the mistakes without it costing so much money. And it just feels bad when I hear about entrepreneurs saying, I spent all this money and I got nothing to show for it. After month after month after month, and the burn rate goes up and there's just no ROI. And certain tactics such as content marketing take a long time. SEO takes a long time. Yet we get all this advice saying you should go do it. And it sounds really great because people sound very convincing when they're talking about it. But I just don't take that approach. Like I said, there are always things I don't know. And when I do these experiments, then I know what I don't know. And then finally, I can go figure it out to know what I know. And that's a data-driven approach. So that's why you want to use this. And like I said, instead of spending $2,000, $3,000 a month, I say, how about you spend $500, $600, $1,000 to test everything out before you go monthly. And I'm constantly conducting these marketing experiments all the time, testing these channels out. So I'm going to show you how to do it using this worksheet. And you don't even need this worksheet. It's just a fancy design. to make me look like I'm super smart. You can just do this on any piece of paper. Let's go through how you're going to do this and how you can do it on your own. You can read this book called Traction by Gabriel Weinberg and Justin Mares. And this is where pretty much I've gleaned all the information from. If you want, you can just read the book. I asked many entrepreneurs and founders to read it, and they say it's become like my marketing Bible, and it's that good. It was written a long time ago, and it takes lessons from the founders of DuckDuckGo, and the content is evergreen. It's aged really well. Doesn't go obsolete. The companies might be different and things might be different in terms of the different types of platforms and what's trending right now. But as far as the principles concerned, it's really well done. And there's this technique in there called the Bullseye Technique, which I'm going to walk you through, or the Bullseye Framework. So you can read the book and just follow along there. If you don't want to read the book, you want the too long, did not read version, TLDR, well, here's what you do is you start off with the marketing channels worksheet in demographics. So first you want to say, okay, who do we think we're going to target? Who's the ideal persona or customer? And you're going to look for the demographics. So what's the sociographic information, what the age, where they live, what's their income, etc. And you just start listing everything down and start creating a story. You know, so-and-so, Mrs. Myers or Deborah or Jack, Frank, they are, you know, between 25 and 35, and they've been working a job and they live in a home with a single family home and married, no kids. I don't know, something like that, demographic information. If you're in B2B, you're going to be thinking about firmographics, which is organizational categories. So you want to go main category, such as the industry, and the subcategory in the industry. So for example, you may say, okay, while they're in the medical industry, well, specifically what in the medical industry type thing, and they're in medicine, what type of medicine, and you just start going down the organizational categories and you start listing those off. And these may go together in terms of where do they work, or if you're B2B, you may say, start with firmographics and say, we're tackling this type of company, this type of retailer, but the person running the retail shop, the manager who makes the decision, is this type of individual, etc. So you're just making the list and you're just going through all the information. Then we get to psychographics, which are the values, attitudes, interests, and personality traits. And you're going to list those off. And so these days it's pretty popular to say, okay, what sort of political values do they have? Are they more conservative? Are they more liberal type thing? And there's a pretty big divide that's happening. And different demographic segments have different types of values. And what are their attitudes towards retail? What are their attitudes towards college, education, et cetera? What are they interested in? What are the personality traits? Are they more in terms of spontaneous shoppers versus do they spend a lot of time analyzing and reading things before they make the decision? What are the personality traits? Are they more vigilant? Are they more reactive, more neurotic? You can go through a model called Ocean, which is the big five-factor personality model, which is openness, conscientiousness, extroversion, agreeableness, and neuroticism. That's one framework that you can use. There's lots of different psychographic frameworks out there. And you just brainstorm and you're creating this persona. And then you want to ask, what platforms do they use to communicate? So how are they communicating? Are they on Facebook? Do they use email, etc.? Or do they use instant messaging, SMS, what have you, and start listing off the platforms? And then where can you find data on their behaviors? And this takes a little bit of digging, but you can just do some research, or you can go look in the data as far as the advertising platforms are concerned, if you find a specific platform that you think they use. So for example, you go to Facebook or you go to Google and Facebook, they provide lots of data in terms of what are their behaviors, et cetera. And there's so much information out there because everybody's tracking your data. And that data gets published because the more data that can be put out to you, the more you'll want to, let's say, advertise or different things. And so you want to just see where can you find the data on those behaviors. There's census, there's information, a lot of stats. I like to look up research, for example, Pew Research or Gallup or different things. What's the data on their behaviors? And all together, you're creating this persona, or some call it an archetype. You're creating this persona of the person that you're trying to target. And that's what you do. So first you got to focus on who is that ideal customer, but then what are the persona? What's the persona of that customer? So we're continuing along. So once you got that done, now you can get into the marketing channels and take a look right here. These are the marketing channels. And what's great about the way that they did it with DuckDuckGo is they said, okay, marketing channels, there's only 19 of them. And you may think, wow, Ed, there's so many different ways that you can market and advertise these days, but they all clump into these big buckets. And you use this three-step method. And this is the Bullseye. I've adjusted a little bit. Some people approach this a little differently, and use what you like. If you go on research and you find a better way that suits you, then go for it. But what you do is you go around the outer ring and you just brainstorm every single possible way you could use that marketing channel, even if it's not up your alley. And the reason we do this is just to stretch, get creative, think outside the box. Don't fall into specific, biases that you may have. For example, offline advertising. Some people say, I'd never take out a bulletin board or something like that, right? And neither is your competition. So it just might work type thing. And so take a look at the different ways. So let's go through. You brainstorm each one of them. I'm going to quickly go through each one. There's plenty of information. In fact, if you just look up traction, marketing channels for traction on Google, there's so many articles of people putting out there what you could do. So let's talk about viral marketing. That's when you get word of mouth referrals, goes viral. So you may have something built in that gets a user to refer somebody else. It could be any type of incentive or what have you, even just a really great experience. And this is important because viral marketing is free. You just have to improve your product and get people talking about it. Then public relations. This is just straightforward. I'm going to go contact the journalist, go right to the press email, press inquiries, different things like that, and have a really great story and just get them interested in telling your story. Someone contact you and write a newspaper article about you, or do some type of film, get you on TV or something like that. Then there's unconventional PR. That's when you do something outrageous where the public relations or these media outlets just want to pick you up because, wow, this was completely unique. Something maybe happened that's newsworthy, and you jump on something and it's just something that's trending, different things like that. So that's unconventional PR, maybe a PR stunt or a gimmick that gets you press. Search engine marketing, that's super easy. That's just, I'm just going to take out an ad on search engine. So I'm going to buy a Google ad is what happens there. Social display ads, that's Facebook, the different things on, like YouTube, like the videos that happen before you watch, or the little banners that pop up. So social media platforms all over the place. Offline ads, we talked about that. Magazine ad, or, a bench, a, park bench, different things like that. Like there's so many different things that you can do. Plenty of opportunity. I remember just going to the store the other day and going to the grocery store. When they print out the receipt, all the coupons are on the back of the receipt. And I thought, that's a novel place to put a whole bunch of coupons. Search engine optimization, SEO, that's when you get all your keywords working correctly. So when someone types in, okay, dog walking, or how to, solve this problem, etc., then you pop up in the search terms, and a lot of people call that organic search. And then content marketing, that's writing blog posts, putting out YouTube videos, anything content driven where people want to come subscribe, take a look at your content. Email marketing, straightforward, MailChimp, just send out an email newsletter. I just signed up for a great one the other day. A lot of people think email's dead. It's not, if it's just good content, because I'm bombarded across all media channels for a really great newsletter. I will read that every single day, especially the headlines, and it's well written and it's brief. Engineering is marketing. This is when you put something, you bake something in as far as product to do marketing. One of the things that we're doing right now is we're giving out a free survey, a free self-assessment that spits out a report with, upsells you into all these different things. So you may have like a free calculator on your site or something, to try, and that's engineering as marketing. Targeting blogs. This kind of goes in content marketing, but it's actually quite different. I had a founder tell me the other day that what he did was he went and he found the top 10 lists of his industry, and his software wasn't listed in the top 10. And so he went there and he contacted them and said, hey, your blog article on the top 10 software is out of date, and I've actually written it. And of course he included his, but he did it in a way that made a lot of sense for that blog. And they said, wow, thanks. And they just posted right away. And he ended up, being on all these blog posts. So you can actually go out and search what blogs are the most popular. You can use these different search where you find out what gets shared the most and who has the most influence, etc. So blogs are pretty big. Business development, that's just creating, channels, making partnerships with companies that may want to sell your product. So, B2B business development, but they may be selling a retail thing. So a strategic alliance or some packaging or different things like that. Sales, pretty straightforward. Just go get some salespeople going. A lot of entrepreneurs and startups begin this way. It's sort of the thing, do things that don't scale. It's the manual. I'm going to go sell and learn about the customer. So I highly encourage doing that. Affiliate programs. We used to do affiliate programs all the time. You sign up, you get a code, and if you refer someone with your code, you get 10% or 40% of the sale, or you get an ongoing revenue stream, etc. Affiliate programs are very sophisticated now with a lot of background information. Existing platforms, this is where if you can use something that's already existing that will help you gain exposure when they're on that platform. So for example, one of the marketing things that we're doing is we're putting one of our entertainment products onto a platform called Steam, and that's a game platform. And so we're marketing within that community and believing that the people on that platform already, if they get exposed to another product, then they can be doing that. So that works for all different types of publishing platforms. Say you're on Spotify, or what's another one? Just any game, publishing company, etc. Is this live? Let's say you're you have a cool widget for Salesforce, right? You put it on the Salesforce App Exchange, things like that. Trade shows, straightforward. Go to trade show. I used to go to Toy Fair every year for a bunch of years straight. Really, really great time. Trade shows, my advice, trade shows, all the action happens before and after the trade show. You're just there to make as many friends as possible and gain exposure, but collect all those cards. But I always line up my meetings before the trade show and say, hey, I'm going to be at the trade show. We get a hotel room and we have all these meetings, or we invite people for parties and mixers, or I figure out which mixers I want to go to. And then if I've met someone, I follow up after the trade show and, let them take a little time to settle back in. And then I just follow up and I just make sure while I'm at the trade show, if I meet someone, I'm messaging them right away, trying to make an impression. That's what I like to do. Offline events. These are, things that you can do where a meetup, we're using meetup.com right now. It's a really fantastic thing to have an offline event where you just get everybody together and you just do some type of activity, etc. Speaking engagements, get on a TED Talk. There's lots of online speaking engagements, probably not as effective as getting a speaking engagement at a local association or a lunch and learn, something like that. And then community building, we do this a lot here at startups.com. But if you can go community building, there's another term here that I use called community hacking, where you kind of infiltrate a community with your marketing pitch, and the community really might not be open to marketing pitches. we're advertising the product, but Reddit is infamous for that. You go and just shamelessly plug your product, they'll kick you out of the Reddit or the subreddit. But you go there and you actually participate with the community and you hack the community so you become a trusted member, and then you put out subtle marketing messages. So that's a way to do it. There are other ways to do community hacking, but I'm going to leave it at that. So you can try all 19 of these channels and just start brainstorming. If we were to use this channel, what we would do, and this is what I do. I just, all bets are off. I just brainstorm, and I try and put a couple ideas or how that might work under each one. And often I'll just keep looking through this and I'll go, hey, I never thought about that. Maybe we should try that. Pretty unconventional. Or I'll go take a stroll and I'll go investigate, like, for example, the receipts, the coupons on the back of the receipt. I looked and I was like, what kind of places always show up here? Because it must be effective type thing. Our family, we use the hair salon coupons a lot. Really great way to promote and advertise. So then what you do is you go through all 19, and then I recommend getting together with a team, or you can really sit down and do a little more research, and then you pick 3 that you're going to test. So, I go 1, 2, 3. So for example, I may say, in the beginning, for the first one, I'm just going to go sales. And the second one, I'm going to go do some SEO. And the third one, I'm going to do events, right? And so you're getting all the details in each one and how to do it. And then you figure out, okay, what is the test that we're going to do? So learn the mechanics of it and say, we're going to try it out for 1 month or 2 weeks or different things like that. I'm always throwing $500,000, $600,000 at different things. I'll say, let's test it out. Let's see what happens. And things pan out, they don't. But if they do pan out and you're able to generate an ROI, they go in the center. And so then when they're in the center and you're generating an ROI, your job is to squeeze that channel for as much ROI as possible. You figure out, how do we optimize it? And then recognize that channels run dry for different factors. Competition comes in, someone gets really wise to what you're doing. You've tapped out, you've reached everybody that you possibly could. And so you're always looking at the ROI, return on investment. Now, this is important because, say, for example, your product is $100 a year, and you go out and you spend $300 per customer to get them. Well, you're in the hole $200 for that year. And so the chances of you recouping and generating an ROI on top of it, that's just not going to work. So you want to really at least break even and say, okay, I've got a place to go. At least I know if I spend $1, I'm going to get $1 back. And you continue to test these things, right? So you just look at, what's going on. And that includes if you're hiring someone, et cetera. So for example, let's say I'm going to test, let's add another thing here. Let's say I'm going to test LinkedIn. Okay. That's a one that I like to test a lot. So LinkedIn. So I'm going to figure out what is my message, cadence of messages, how much does Sales Navigator cost? I'm going to hire someone to get on there and implement. Instead of hiring a marketing company that's got a fancy automated doodad, wait for that. Before I go hire them and pay them $2,000, $3,000 a month, I'm going to test things out myself and say, is this worth it? So I'm going to A/B test some messages, and then I'll hire someone just to get in the Sales Navigator, et cetera. And maybe we'll take out a few ads, different things. I'll try it around, and then I'll explore, and then we'll calculate the ROI, the projected. And if it works, then like I said, then everything goes into the center and you're squeezing it out. And you may have none of them get in the center, but at least what you do is you could then go, okay, I've tried this, I've tried this, I've tried this. And you keep going until you get, at least a couple in the center. All you really need is one, and to optimize it. And that's what you do. So back to how it works, figure out the personas, brainstorm all the channels, test 3, and then put them all in there. And anybody can do this. There's so much information. It's one thing about marketing channels. The people or the organizations, the companies that run these marketing channels are more than happy to help you spend your money and to do tests there. So that's how that works. So you can look at the entire sheet and work it together. Just follow the steps. Like I said, you don't even need a sheet. You can just, write it down. This is how you do it yourself. Now, let's just say you're busy and you want someone to do it for you. Well, like I said, I really advocate for tests. And instead of hiring a superpowered consultant that's going to charge you a monthly retainer and get you to commit for 3 months, et cetera, which drives me nuts. And I don't understand, and maybe I'm just complaining a little bit, but some people, they go, oh yeah, it's going to be a 3-month commitment that you have to come in. Well, I prefer to say, hey, how about we gather some data with a small amount of money, and let's figure out if it's going to work for you. Then we can project out and we calculate how much money you might make if you commit for the next little bit. And everybody just feels better. It's just a better way of doing business. Well, for those of you who want some experts and people, this organization, or I've been partnering with Consulta, and they'll just bring in some consultants that'll come in this case, marketing consultants, associate consultants. And so they'll take this framework from a senior consultant like me, and then they'll execute it on your behalf for a fraction of the cost if you actually want to come and hire me, because, well, I'm expensive. That's just straightforward. And I want to be expensive because that's just the name of the game in terms of business is concerned. And I'm just not as available. So instead of hiring these, high-powered consultants, people like me, or these agencies that got overhead and they want to keep charging you, they may work out. And these high-powered consultants may be exactly what you need. But how about you first test yourself, gather some data, figure that out. So go ahead and contact Consulta. I'll include the information on that. That's just one place. Or again, you can just do it yourself, or bring in somebody junior to run a few tests for you if you don't mind managing that sort of thing. I highly recommend. Go make some money first, and then when you've got the budget, you can start spending with the agencies. And that's what great founders and entrepreneurs do, is once they start scaling into it, they can just hire a chief marketing officer, or just commit a whole bunch of budget and hire an agency and let them run for you. But you've given them your data in terms of what's working. You've educated them, so they're not wasting their time and adding to your overhead in the budget trying to figure this out, these experiments. So that's how you test a customer acquisition strategy channel. You test it before committing to a budget. Okay, I hope that was helpful, and stay tuned. I've got a lot more coming your way.